NASCAR has a culture problem, and it's gotten so bad that it made me come back and make another race review video, if you can call it that. This really isn't a race review video. This is more of a NASCAR needs to fix this video because the playoffs have really created a monster that NASCAR can't keep marketing and pushing for, and that is the kind of the issue of over aggressive driving in playoff races in situations like what we saw at Martinsville, really across all three series. The Xfinity series may be the least the, the least shitty of them. The truck's definitely the worst. Cup also having some issues as well. That'll be talked about in a little bit. But the playoffs have created this terrible thing of, the win in your in system. And basically, there's always going to be a point when you're entering into the final race of the round of 8, which in this case is Martinsville. And someone's going to go into that race, at least one person, maybe even two, are going to go into that race and be like, I need to win to make it. Points are not an option for me at this point. I need to win. And then by the end of the race, there's even more people that get added into the I need to win this race category because maybe stage points don't go their way, stuff like that. So at the end of the race, you have at least 2-3 people fighting for a win, knowing they can only win to advance through, and that's where issues start arising and where the playoffs have really, really created this really bad monster that NASCAR cannot keep pushing for because it's dangerous, bad, shitty, awful, and humiliating for NASCAR, really, that this type of stuff is awarded and cheered for. It's not how racing is meant to be. Look to the truck race. First of all, the truck series has been a clown show all season long. It's been awful. It has probably been the worst I've ever seen any racing series be in terms of respect levels and the amount of yellows that come out each race. I mean, if there's a truck race without double digit cautions, then I think that's maybe a success this season because there have been so many races this season that have had this issue of we're going to cause yellows all the time. The first two races at Daytona and Daytona Road Course had so many yellows that really were not needed. Las Vegas had a lot of yellows. Bristol had a lot of yellows. Martinsville had a lot of yellows. And it goes on from there. Knoxville had a ton of yellows. All these other tracks had tons of yellows. There have been very few clean races. Even tracks where trucks could get spread out and it's a wide racetrack, they still find ways to try and kill each other out there because no one races with respect in the truck series. It just doesn't happen. 5 years ago, that's not the issue. 5 years ago, it would be like, oh, this person's unexperienced, that's fine, they made a mistake. Now it's the same people making the same mistakes all the time, to where it used to be someone made a mistake, they fixed it, and now they haven't made that mistake again, or, they're getting better. Now people are just doing the same thing over and over again, driving through people, and just, it turns into a mess, and the Truck Series race was that mess. John Hunter Nemechek, first of all, dominant season, should have the championship by far. He has been the best truck of the season, and there is no question at all to that John Hunter Nemechek has not had the best truck. Nemechek has had the best truck, the best season overall by a wide margin, and anyone other than him winning the championship would be a fraud. But here he is in Martinsville, and he has to go to the back of the field. He's back there, and he gives Austin Wayne Self a bump up the racetrack. It's Martinsville. Bumps are going to happen. You're back there racing around 20th. Nemechek's going, I want to go. I can't stay behind you for much longer. He gives him a simple bump up the racetrack. He goes to the inside to try and pass Austin Wayne Self. And Self, down into turn number 3, hooks it left and hooks Nemechek. After the race, he said, I didn't know who it was. I just turned left down in there and I made contact with him. Basically, almost admitting that he did turn the guy on purpose, and now he's like, oh man, it sucks that was Nemechek, but he deserved it, I guess. But it sucks that was a playoff driver. So the man who's had the best season, by far, is now out of it because a man who rides around 20th all race, maybe a little bit better every race, gets mad at a bump and decides to hook him. And then people are going, well, Nemechek didn't have to be that aggressive with it. He should know what he's racing for. Well, without the format, he shouldn't be racing for something like this. He should already have the championship locked up. And also, the format is supposed to, in NASCAR's eyes, push drivers to race 100% at all times. But Nemechek somehow needed to be points racing other than going for the win, which is the opposite of what the format was supposed to do. The format was supposed to encourage people to go for wins, not points race. But here we are again. NASCAR's ruined whatever they try and do because NASCAR is NASCAR and doesn't know what to do with their sport. Moving on from the Nemechek thing, he almost missed the final round, by the way. Luckily, he did not, because that would have been an even bigger farce in terms of the season. But the end of the race, first of all, there's yellow after yellow after yellow. There's very little long green flag around this truck race. Very, very embarrassing. Todd Gilliland has had the best truck all race long. The worst he got with someone was bumping Zane Smith for the lead late in the race, which wasn't even a bad bump. That was the worst Todd Gilliland did all race long. It was very, very clean, even after coming through the pack in stage number 3, and did a really good job, had the best truck by far, and was looking like he was going to win the race. But on a late restart, Todd Gilliland chooses the inside as the leader, Zane Smith in second chooses behind him, and then Stuart Friesen chooses the outside row. So now Todd Gilliland has 2 drivers around him that need to win to make it into the Final 4 at Phoenix. What happens in turn 1? Zane Smith gets a bump from behind. It pushes Todd Gilliland up the track into Stuart Friesen. Now they're 3 wide for the lead down into turn number 3. They make it through there. Off of 4, Friesen gets the wall, comes down, collects Gilliland, and after spinning Gilliland up into the outside wall, collecting trucks back behind, Friesen still continues to turn left down to Zane Smith, trying to crash Smith so that Stuart Friesen can be the one to advance, and ends up turning himself in the process. Caution flag comes out. Zane Smith walks off to win with his second top 5 of the season, being his first win of the season. So Stuart Friesen may have very well hit the wall and come down and not meant to wreck Todd Gilliland. But it really looked intentional, considering it looked like he barely tapped the wall, kept coming left even after hitting Gilliland, and even after Todd Gilliland's already off his nose, he continues to turn left down into Zane Smith, hoping that he junks the 21 into the outside wall just as hard as he did to the 38, so that the 52 advances through and not the 21. That is exactly what it looked like Stuart Friesen tried to do, and it is a joke of what happened right there. Friesen legitimately took out someone for no reason and tried to do the same to another driver for what? To advance through into the championship. And then if it were to work out, right, in his interview he would say, well, I did what I had to do to make it into the Final 4 at Phoenix. And that is another thing that pisses me off about current day NASCAR, is the fact of, well, I did what I needed to do to advance. That is a terrible, terrible excuse. Basically going, I threw out racing morals because I needed to go to advance. That is awful. And the fact that NASCAR puts drivers in position to have to do that is asinine. It makes no sense whatsoever, where you have a point where you're going, well, I basically need to wreck this guy to advance through into the Final 4 or into the next round. It is absurd. The Xfinity race was a lot better than the truck race. The only real issues were Todd Gibbs brake checking Sam Mayer for no reason, which was kind of weird. Spencer Boyd in the 52 staying out because they had no sets of tires left, and then not ever coming back down pit road and holding up Harrison Burton. A yellow happened behind him, and then he caused yellow on the next restart because he stayed out once again, middle of the pack, with a car that was at best going to run 25th, 30th. Yeah, so he kind of junked some cars like that. On one restart, Ty Gibbs was leading, Gregson was second, and Cindric was third. And Gregson got a bump from Cindric as he was bumping Ty Gibbs, and it caused this Newton's cradle type thing where Gibbs got spun off of the front bumper of Noah Gregson. Not on purpose, very much so an accident. Unfortunately, Cindric was in the back bumper of Gregson as he was in the back bumper of Ty Gibbs. But Gibbs afterwards was basically threatening payback on Noah Gregson, and if that final yellow didn't come out, it was apparently looking like he was going to take out Noah Gregson. So that would have been very interesting to see if Ty Gibbs would have done that, because honestly, Ty Gibbs, I like the guy. I think he's a good, talented racer, but he seems to be in over his head a few points this season, where he's done some things where it's just like, that was a little bad. Same could be said for Sam Mayer, though, as well. But, you know, Ty Gibbs, very, very fast, but does need to tone it down, because there are some things where, you know, it was either his fault or it wasn't really anyone's fault, and he was really mad about it for some reason. But then at the end of the race, the very shocking thing, Daniel Hemrick with the lead, looking for his first ever NASCAR win, uh, wants to try and obviously win the race, but is also trying to protect for some points. He chooses the inside lane. Noah Gragson chooses the outside lane. So instead of choosing to line up behind Daniel Hemrick, he chooses to line up on the outside row. And on the restart, he gets a good enough jump, and Hemrick gets a bump from Cindric from behind to where Noah Gragson gets the lead using the outside lane off turn 2 and off into turns 3 and 4. Once again, very, very good by Noah Gragson to do it cleanly and not just choose behind Hemrick and send him off the track into second place and then drive through the bomb and win the race. The yellow came up before that, but Gragson then got a nice jump on the last restart, got away. Cindric on to second at the white flag, and into turns 3 and 4. Cindric dove it to the inside of Gragson as Gragson missed the bottom of 3 and 4, but Cindric had every opportunity to come off the bottom of turns 3 and 4 and slam Gragson into the wall to win the race himself. Cindric, though, being the clean new racer that he is, thought big picture and said, if I slam this guy into the wall, make him lose this race, Phoenix might not be too good for me. So Cindric tries his chances with the draggers to the line. Gragson ends up winning, but Cindric lives to fight another day and doesn't make an enemy going into the final race of the season where the championship is the big prize. So, Xfinity race, pretty good. There were a few incidents during it where you're like, that could have been avoidable, and it was kind of bad stuff. But otherwise, there was no real egregious sending and stuff for, stuff in the playoffs. The man who advanced through with the win on the playoffs did it very, very cleanly with an outside pass of the race leader on the restart. Pretty good there by Noah Gragson. Then we move to the Cup race, and there were some bad things in this as well. So you have Truex fighting for the final spot with Blaney, with Kyle Busch, and with Brad. Logano trying to win, and this race was pretty calm. The only real issue that happened in the first 400 or so laps was Ryan Blaney brake checking Austin Dillon for some reason. I guess he didn't like that Dillon bumped him in the middle of 3 and 4, so he slammed on the brakes and ruined his own race. So for Ryan Blaney, not too smart there. He did the same thing in 2017 to Kevin Harvick. You'd think he would have learned that it didn't work then, and it definitely was not going to work now, and it ended up hurting him more than it hurt Austin Dillon. Dillon also has issues, though. Then, later in the race, all this chaos is happening. Truex ends up getting shoved out, and he gets pushed up into the wall by Kurt Busch. So there's a lot happening there. It was just kind of chaotic for Truex. He has a tire rub. He has all this stuff happening. But very late in the race, some of the crazy stuff is set up by Brad Keselowski, battle with Chase Elliott, very, very hard for a championship spot, basically in a point now to where he needs to win the race to advance. He gets inside of Chase Elliott, going into turns 3 and 4, gets loose, and completely wipes the 9 of Chase Elliott out. Now, obviously, very much so, Brad's fault. Can't blame anyone but Brad for that at all. And just another thing set up by the format NASCAR's created. Brad Keselowski would be nowhere near a shot at the championship with any other format, really. But here he is, having to do desperation moves with a car that has been, at best, 10th best all season long. Just didn't work out. And then, ensuing restarts, Brad ends up getting into Bowman and shoving him out, giving Bowman a tire rub. They're 3 wide. Stuff happens. There's more yellows. Truex, is falling back now. And then Bowman on the next restart drives clear of Brad, drives down to 3 and 4, and absolutely sends Denny Hamlin what he says was on accident, and kind of is true because in turns 1 and 2 he does move up the track to let Denny get the lead back. So Denny ends up getting the lead back. Bowman falls into second, and then there's this kind of log jam happening for third on back with Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski fighting for third because Kyle is tied with Truex at that point. For the final spot, and Truex is bound with Kurt Busch back behind. So there's all this stuff happening. Yellow comes out because the same thing that Brad did to Chase, Bowman does to Hamlin for the lead. Bowman misses the bottom, gets loose, and ends up wiping the 11 of Denny Hamlin out from the lead into the wall. Once again, no one you can blame but the guy on the inside, Alex Bowman. Completely his fault. Obviously was not intentional, just like the Brad thing was not intentional with Chase. But you have to blame someone in that situation. That someone is Alex Bowman. So Bowman ends up causing that. Denny is not happy about it, obviously. Denny's still in the playoffs, still not completely safe in the playoffs. Luckily, he does advance because he was, once again, so far the second best driver this season. It would be a shame if he did not have a shot at the championship at Phoenix next week. But then on the restart is where things happen. You have Bowman with the lead. He chooses the inside. Kyle Busch from second chooses the outside. Brad chooses the inside in third. On the restart, Kyle looks to try and go around the outside of Bowman. It doesn't work. He races Bowman cleanly. Brad ends up hooking Kyle a little bit off turn 4, putting Kyle into the wall. Bowman wins the race. Kyle ends up second. Brad ends up third. Truex advances because he got a lot of spots on the outside on the choose. Kyle not happy with Brad because of what happened. All 4 come to the checkered flag. Turns down into Brad entering turn 1 after the checkered flag and wipes himself out in the process. Bowman goes down to do his start-finish line interview. Denny comes up and chases him. Gets really mad at him. Does some stuff. Drives away. Bowman the winner. Denny still advances. And all this stuff is happening. And then after the race, Kyle is furious with Brad Keselowski, saying he should go fight him right now. Denny calls Alex Bowman a hack. And people are mad that drivers maybe didn't get aggressive enough, which is where, once again, NASCAR has created an uncontrollable problem with the playoffs. Because with the playoffs, everyone now goes and says, well, it's basically acceptable to move the guy or root the guy or basically wreck the guy out of the way if you're looking to go into the Final Four. Which is where I say, no, that's still not acceptable. If Kyle or Brad went down to turn 1 on the restart from third place, second on the inside row, and just took Bowman up into the guy in second and drove by the inside, that would be a pretty cheap move because Bowman has not done anything to one of you two, and then you just end up doing it, and then the reason you say it is, well, I'm in the playoffs, so I can do that, which is very, very shitty. It gives non-playoff drivers no ammunition because, God forbid, if a non-playoff driver touches a playoff driver, then that non-playoff driver will be ridiculed all week long because you cannot race playoff drivers hard under this format, but playoff drivers can race you like complete dickheads no matter what. You know, it doesn't matter the situation they are in. If Brad Keselowski wanted to go down to turn 1 and full send Alex Bowman up into Kyle Busch and drive through and win it, Brad Keselowski would not be necessarily seen as a bad person because he's in the playoffs. He had to do whatever he could to advance. But if Alex Bowman were in that same position behind Brad Keselowski or Kyle Busch going for the win at Martinsville and he full sends one of them up into the other, well, Bowman shouldn't have done that because those guys are racing for something a lot more important than you are, Bowman. How dare you touch that driver, even though that driver in the playoffs has a lot more right to wreck people than you do? Makes no sense. What is this double standard bullshit that NASCAR is going? I don't know, but it is an uncontrollable problem that needs to be fixed. Nemechek said it after the truck race. They are racing with no respect out there. Kyle Busch has said it. They're all saying it. The new crop of drivers does not race with much respect at all. And granted, some of the examples I brought up, like Brad wrecking Chase and Bowman wrecking Hamlin, they were accidents. They weren't on purpose. But the main issue is that on the late race restart, you're expecting the driver in the playoffs that needs to win to full send the guy in front for the win, wreck the guy for the win, push him up 5 lanes for the win. That's just not how it should be. And then on top of all this, then, Hamlin has a very legitimate right to be mad at what happened with Alex Bowman. But then people are bringing up stuff from 2017 with Chase or 2019 with Joey Logano. And at that point, you can't just keep doing that and bringing up the past and being like, well, this happened with this person, and bring up the whole list of receipts about what happened. Right? The thing with Chase was also an accident. It wasn't supposed to happen. Denny went in there to go and bump him out of the way, but ended up wrecking him because he hit him too hard. A complete accident was not on purpose whatsoever. Same thing with Bowman. Complete accident was not on purpose whatsoever. He had raced Denny clean for 15, 20 laps at that point. Why would he decide to just go down to turn 3 and wreck him at that point when he could have done it 10 laps earlier, 5 laps earlier? It makes no sense. But here we are. This is NASCAR and basically NASCAR fandom for you because nothing makes sense. And it's really all the playoffs' fault because when you're basically saying drivers can race like complete assholes and then it would basically not be their fault, that is a major issue and a major red flag in terms of what this should be. NASCAR should not be a glorified demolition derby at at these racetracks. It should not. It should be good hard racing. I understand it's Martinsville, Bristol, whatever short track racing. You're gonna have bumps and banging, and completely fine with that. Bump and run, perfectly fine. Slamming someone in the door, perfectly fine. But setting off in there many car lengths deeper to where you wouldn't even make the corner if you didn't have the guy in front of you, or just basically hooking someone because of something like that makes no sense. And it's not the way it should be. But it's a playoff. It's a playoff issue, and yeah, it won't change as long as the playoffs are around. I could tell you that NASCAR could put their foot down, even though they won't, because they love what they're seeing. They love this drama that it's creating. But even if they did, for some reason, put their foot down, drivers would still keep doing it, because what's NASCAR going to do? Penalize a playoff driver? They don't do that. They don't really penalize playoff drivers unless they fail inspection or something. They really don't penalize them for on-track stuff. They just don't do that anymore. So, yeah, that's about all I have to rant about. NASCAR has a culture problem because of the playoffs, and it needs to be changed because it is a monster what happens at races like this now, especially down the Truck Series. The respect down there is negative. It's not even zero. It is negative. That's how bad it's gotten. So that's about all I have to say. Thanks for watching if you did. Hopefully, the Phoenix races are cleaner. And if it comes down to late race restarts there and the championship drivers are near each other, hopefully, dear God, everyone races each other with respect.